Oh Jesus, I'm falling asleep in my chair here.
I know. I'm excited. You know what I'm also really excited for? Food.
Yeah.
Freaking food, man. We've got like I was saying earlier, we got just like.
Oh, you were looking over at the kit, but I realized you're looking at the fridge.
I'm looking at the fridge because I think the wings and fries are in there, and I think all of the Italian, well, some of the Italian. So
okay, well, maybe we should just do the podcast so we can get into the food.
Yeah, maybe we should just kind of just get straight to
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is CineCasters Ultimate Timeline.
Welcome back to CineCasters Ultimate Timeline. I'm your host, Janglez the Strange, and today I am joined by Justin Ferrante.
Yes, thanks for having me back the third time around. Yeah.
So Nate is away, I'm assuming, this week. I'm doing pre-recording these so that we have them lined up and ready to go. But this is the show where we watch movies or TV and maybe video games soon, too, actually. I'm working on something.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That would be cool.
I'm working on something where we play and we re-pitch it to each other to see if we can make something different or better or newer or more cohesive or better. I know I already said that, but better is the thing.
Batman Arkham Knight.
If you want to do a video game, you mean?
Yeah. Not that the game's bad. It's just for a game whose predecessors include Arkham Asylum and Arkham City.
Arkham Asylum is, I think, the best, in my opinion, the best Batman game. But you've been over this.
We've discussed the
at length.
Yes, at length as to like the merits of. I mean, they're both phenomenal games.
Yeah.
Like you can't really go wrong playing either.
Yeah.
But Arkham Knight, while still a good game, is like when
it's
you think
weakest, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, it is. Like even Arkham Origins has a
different studio too.
Yeah, but in my opinion, it even still has like a bit of a better, more interesting story than Knight does.
Yeah. But today we're not talking about Batman. Today we are talking about The Legend of Korra. Now this is a show that I have wanted to do for so long, like even before CineCasters was even invented.
Yeah.
I have wanted to do, or I did.
Yeah.
I have wanted to talk about Korra because I love Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yep.
And I love Korra too. I really do love Korra.
Yeah.
But there are some problems with it. And I want to take the time actually to talk about why those problems are there.
Yeah.
And possibly like how they came about, as opposed to just being like, oh, this was such a good idea and these things happen. Because I do think there are actually some reasons why Korra doesn't hold up as well.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about them, but I'll wait, save that for a second because I want to hear your opinions on Korra.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Korra. Like going into it, I had always heard mixed things. Like I think you were one of the people who was telling me that it was good and to check out, but
it's worth watching. Yeah,
but I heard other people saying like, oh, like it's not good. Like don't waste your time. Da 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 da. Like there's a fairly popular video on YouTube that's almost like an hour and a half long.
Jesus.
It's called like why Legend of Korra is like hot garbage or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the person who wrote it like put a lot of work and effort into.
So it's like an essay.
Yeah, it's like a visual essay on like, and it's literally like why Korra is garbage. And I like after seeing the show, I was like, it's a bit harsh. Like I would not. Say
you haven't seen their video essay either.
I did actually.
Oh, you have one? Okay.
A while ago. This was after I had first watched the show, so like within the last couple of years, and I like had pulled it up and was kind of going through, and I was like, I understand, but like I don't think it's garbage. Like that's like no, I wouldn't agree with that at all. I mean, sure, it's like it runs the challenge of like it's coming up against one of the best animated shows of its time. So,
Avatar: The Last Airbender is an amazing show, and I have my problems with it.
Oh, sure.
It has
like,
some pacing issues, but
yeah, like well, it's like any show or any piece of art, right? Like there's very like I mean I know sometimes we talk about certain albums like, oh, this album's like it's perfect, but it's, in actuality like it's not.
Or we do
like,
the same thing with movies, like like the way I often talk about Inception.
Yeah, it's like all the movies like it's perfect. It's like, but like I'm sure if you were to really like
There are some problems.
There's
Even my favorite TV show of all time, which is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, does have its issues.
Well, of course, like, but any piece of art is going to have those because it's made by people. Like, it's art. It's not like a math equation. It doesn't have like a perfect solution. That's like, but that's part of what makes it art.
Yeah.
So no, I definitely don't hold that. I think it's a really good show. I really enjoyed watching Korra, and actually, it's funny because I tried to get my wife into watching Last Airbender, and the first season she really didn't like it.
The first season's slow.
It is slow, but her biggest thing was like, so this kid is like 10 years old,
12,
or 12, and people are like, oh, like my child's stuck in the well, Avatar, like you need to come deal with this problem. Like her, like there was a couple episodes where it's like, oh, like the Avatar needs to come help us, and they're like, he's a kid, like y'all are adults and you can't figure this out. And I think we're going through and we're watching season 1 again, and it comes up a little bit, but I think she's knowing where it goes, she can get through it. Like season 2 and 3 of the original Avatar, so she actually enjoyed a lot more. Like you meet Toph, and you get Bossing Say, and you're like, oh, there's some like political like stuff.
Season 2, I think, is the tightest.
Yeah,
it is. Like from beginning to end, there's a gradual build and political stuff going on in Bossing Say.
Yeah,
and like the rising tension, and the pacing feels really, really good. In season 2.
So yeah, we're going. So we watched Legend of Korra after that, and she actually preferred Legend of Korra, and I think that was because like the characters are a little bit older.
The theming is older.
Yeah, so it's like it's more for like teenager, kind of like a young adult. Like my wife's really into a lot of like YA.
Actually, a lot of the book recommendations I get are from Taylor.
Yeah, so she's very much into like that kind of stuff. So seeing it and it's like, oh, okay, like I like this sort of content a lot better. So we both really enjoyed watching Legend of Korra. Like again, like is it as good as Last Airbender? I don't think so, and I think it boils down to one specific thing, and I don't know if it'll trample over something that you were going to talk about.
No, go ahead, because it'll probably lead into.
Okay, yeah, it could be a good lead in. Is the fact that it doesn't have one cohesive narrative.
Exactly,
and I'll let you, because I know you're waiting to explain why that is, but when you're watching The Last Airbender, it's like, okay, you find out, I think it's episode, when do they do the Fire Sage temple, where Roku's temple, what episode is that? It's like episode 13, 12.
No, it happens earlier than that.
8.
Yeah, it's got to be
somewhere earlier on when Aang goes to Roku's temple and he's talks to him. He's like, oh, like so Sozon's comet is coming next summer, and then like Ozai is gonna use it to, and like the firebenders are all gonna be super strong, and like he's gonna use it to wipe out any remaining resistance. So you have to master all these elements and defeat Ozai before the comet arrives. And it's like, boom, there we go. And everything in season 1, 2, and 3 is always leading up to Aang learning the different elements, mastering the elements, and finding a way to defeat Ozai
before Sozon's comet
arrives. In Legend of Korra, the antagonist in season 1 doesn't really tie into the antagonist of season 2, who also therefore doesn't really tie into the antagonist of season 3 and then season 4.
Well, season 3 and 4 do tie into
a little bit.
I'll talk about why in a second. Yeah.
And so that I think makes it a bit weaker because it's more of these compartmentalized. I mean, it does help set it apart, but one last thing I'll say about that is like one of the only thing I don't like about Batman the Animated Series, which again I think is like one of the best TV shows that's ever been made. It's a phenomenal show.
Changed the way animation was looked at in terms of how adult it could get and how the storytelling could be more in depth.
Absolutely. My only gripe with the show is the fact that it's very like it's episodic. It's more like an anthology.
Yeah.
Like when I sit down to watch Avatar, it's like, oh, like we're building to Sozon's comet, we're building to season 3, and like
there's a goal or at least a timeline.
Yeah, and like you're in season 2. Oh, we're gonna do the Bossing Say stuff, and then they do the Eclipse Siege, and then it lulls a bit in the pacing after that, and then they go to the Sozon's comet Arise and all that. But when you're watching Batman the Animated Series, like you could literally pop in. There's 4 seasons. You could pop in any volume of any disc at any time, and there's kind of some story elements, but like not really. Like you get to the final episode of the 4th season and it's just an episode.
It's just done. Yeah.
It's just like, now we're done. There's no more. So you're like, you never get that finality of like, oh, like there was stuff that was building or themes that kind of carried over. It's more of an anthology. So to me, that was the I mean, again, if you looked at it more objectively, maybe there are other, but like that was the major weakness, if you wanted to call it, of that show was, and it was the same thing with Batman Beyond. Did the same thing. If you watch that show, it's again, it does it a bit better than the Batman the Animated Series does, but you reach the end of the final season of Batman Beyond, and it's just
done.
Another episode.
And that was a great show. I actually prefer Batman Beyond than I do to Batman the Animated Series.
Oh yeah,
that's just a personal thing.
Yeah. But
so I do want to get into the reason.
So I'll let you go on.
There's a reason why this happened is because, and why I wanted to do Korra. It has nothing to do with the fact that I think this is bad. I don't think that this show is bad, and I don't think you do either.
No, I really don't.
And I know a lot of people have gripes with it, but I want to explain from the research that I've done. So a lot of this could be wrong, but the research that I've done, the reason it turned out this way and was a little disgruntled was for several reasons. But the first reason is because the show was only supposed to be one season. And I believe it wasn't even supposed to be as many episodes as the first season actually wound up being.
Yeah.
And so it was only supposed to be one season about Korra dealing with Amon.
Yeah.
And the Equalists and how that worked out. And if you look at it that way, I actually think that season on its own is pretty tight.
Yes.
The first season is pretty tight. There's a couple episodes in there that might be filler. And maybe I think it's 12 episodes, and you might be able to bring them down to 10.
13.
13? Yeah,
13.
But either way, I think that season is really tight.
Yeah.
Before that season ended, the show was renewed for another season. Mm-hmm. And they hadn't planned on that. So Nickelodeon was the company, and the creators hadn't planned on creating another season. That was never the plan. It was just supposed to be like, oh, we've been given the opportunity to tell another story.
Yeah.
Let's tell another story. And they wanted to do Korra in the future. Very cool idea.
Yeah.
So then second season comes along, and I think halfway through the second season, they got renewed for another 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So they hadn't even planned for a second season, and now they were given 2 more, which is fine. So what they were trying to do, I think, is really explore the world and the way that things can change. And I actually think there is a thematic overtone to each series.
Yeah.
But that's why, like, when we do season 2, it feels like this huge culmination at the end of season 2 when they have like the spirit battles between Vaatu and Rava.
Yeah.
And Unalaq, and it feels big. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh shit. And then we get into season 3. So season 3 and 4 were planned to be back to back, but in order to make sure, and they were planned together, but in order to make sure that the other 2 seasons didn't feel separate in terms of their storytelling, they were given 2 separate stories.
Yeah.
Instead of an overarching theme, which I do think was maybe a good idea. And I would be willing to defend that. But the third season, a lot of people say is the weakest. Mm-hmm. But I think it's actually my favorite.
I love season 3.
I love season 3. And it explores some really cool ideas. And then season 4 came along, and they continued on with the ideas that were happening there. So that's why, like, the story never had like a overarching narrative. That was more to do with Nickelodeon and how they were choosing to renew seasons as opposed to the creators coming up with a new story, as far as I know. When they had originally decided to come up with the idea for Avatar, they had always envisioned it as 3 seasons with X amount of episodes to tell a whole story. There was always an end goal. And that's why I think season 1 of Korra is so tight. Yeah. Because it was like, here's what the story we want to tell. And that's the best part about writing a TV show, is you set out with an idea in mind, especially one that has a narrative like that.
Yeah.
That you're leading a trajectory. The other thing that I will say is that I am really disappointed in how Nickelodeon handled Korra.
Okay.
Because they kept renewing seasons, and then they thought nobody was watching Korra.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, nobody's watching Korra. Turns out everybody was watching Korra online.
Yeah.
Because the people who were watching Korra were our generation.
Yeah.
It was not a show that was for younger kids the way Avatar had been. When Avatar first came out, or The Legend of Aang if you're in Europe, when The Legend of Aang or Avatar The Last Airbender came out, we were 12?
Yeah.
12 to 14 when it first started airing. It finished when I was in high school, so I was probably about 14 or 15 when the last season came out. And So it was at our demographic at the time. When Korra came out, we were watching, and I felt like it was still towards our demographic. It was young adult, but like shit got dark. Amon was scary.
Yeah,
he
was freaked me out.
Yeah,
He freaked me
and
out.
And Korra is afraid of him, and for visceral reasons. Like you're like, oh shit, this motherfucker is scary.
Yeah, the other one that really did it for me was Zahir. And
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about Zahir. You know the scene I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, there's some crazy shit. Yeah. We'll talk about that. But when so when Nickelodeon, they were like, oh, it's losing popularity, and so they kept moving where it was placed.
Yeah.
In terms of its timing. So instead of being like, Saturday morning or whatever, or like Friday nights or Thursday nights primetime television, they kept moving it around.
Yeah.
So it was harder to find. And then they couldn't get away with having Korra and Asami straight up be in a relationship. They couldn't get away with it in the show, so they heavily implied it, which I'm fine with. But then Nickelodeon pulled the last 2 episodes from air, so the only place to find it was online. And I'm assuming they already mandated that they weren't allowed to straight up tell the audience that Korra and Asami were in a relationship, because Nickelodeon is a children's show. We can't do that. We can't show same-sex couples, God forbid.
Yeah, think of the children.
Yeah. Oh my God. Fuck. It makes me so angry for 2 reasons.
So
One, it's normal.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say. Same-sex couples is normal. It's a thing that happens. It will continue to happen. Stop beating around the bush and just do it. Just do it. Right? And I know some people are like, oh, like, let's make shows that are queer bait, or let's make shows that have, I know queer baiting is a different thing, but let's make shows that have same-sex couples, but then only like, and it's all about that. It's like, no, let's make shows that have same-sex couples, that have trans people, that have lots of different things going on in them.
Yeah.
And have it not be about that at all.
Yeah.
Because it's normal. And the more we normalize it, the better.
Yeah.
Anyway, rant about that over.
Quick thing about that, not to get to, like, you know what series actually does that pretty good, surprisingly?
What?
John Wick.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although John Wick is still adult.
Yeah. So again, maybe not a super fair comparison, but like my wife and I have watched all 3 John Wicks over the last couple months. Like, great action series, but there are characters in there who are non-binary. There are characters in there who like have like same-sex attractions, and who like there's a character in there who is either mute or deaf. I can't. And the second one.
It's been a while.
But it's never brought up. Like it's the characters are never treated any differently.
The story isn't about that.
No.
It just happened to be that.
Yeah, and like the character in the third one, I always want to call his character the Inquisitor. Adjudicator. I always want to call the character the Inquisitor, but that's a Star Wars.
No, it's the Adjudicator.
Adjudicator. That character is treated with like such revere and respect, and the fact that character is like non-binary is never, or gender fluid is never brought up at all.
Yeah, and so, but I think we need to do more of that in kids.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like if John Wick can do it, if like this,
but
like
John, again, that's the problem. Anyway,
yeah,
we're getting a little off topic here.
Yeah.
But the other reason that takes me off. So one, the whole issue of showing children same-sex relationships. You can fuck off about that because it's normal and it should be normal. The second problem is because how Nickelodeon, through that system, kind of fucked over Korra.
Yeah.
As a show. Mm-hmm. The other reason is they also, at the last minute, pulled funding from the last season.
Yeah. So
all of a sudden, one of the episodes had to be a clip show in the last season. Mm-hmm. And it was a great clip show. It has one of the best comedic moments ever where they got the villain's call. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember.
The 4-way villain call. And they got all the actors to come back and like play their parts, and then Unalot comes on and they're like, oh, it's Unalot. It's great. It's great. It's so funny. But the reason they had to do a clip show was because they lost funding. Yeah. And I think Nickelodeon really fucked over the creators of Korra and the staff more than people realize, because they often say like, hey, what were the writers thinking? I think a lot of these decisions that were made were actually on the part of Nickelodeon more than they were on the part of the creators. And we wound up with this very excellent but flawed TV show.
Yeah, they did the best they could with kind of what the guidelines and parameters that they had to work with. Yeah.
Well, so one of the things they were saying is they wanted to keep their staff for the last season. They said, we had great staff. We wanted to keep everyone for the staff. But in order to justify keeping everyone for the staff, they had to lose an episode. Yeah. And so they opted for a clip show. Yeah. Which I think is a better thing to do. Instead of being like, oh, we'll lose one episode, or we'll keep all. I don't think you can lose an episode because if Nickelodeon orders that many, then you have to have this many episodes, and in order to make sure the episode is a full episode, we're gonna have to let some staff go.
Yeah,
and I think it's better to just be like, fuck it, we'll make a clip show and keep everyone on board.
No, definitely, and like that's further exacerbated by the fact that in the original series, like in Last Airbender, they have like they take the idea of the clip show where and they do like probably one of the smartest things.
Oh, that is such a
what is it? What is the name of that episode?
The Ember
Island Players. Yeah.
Ember Island Players. That is a great episode.
That is, and it's so
you
brilliant.
Can just watch that. And you have the whole story.
Yeah.
Except it's hilarious because they make Toph into this.
He's like,
oh, there! I got a good look at you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
They have that great like little jab where they're like, "Oh, look, it's the Great Divide." Let's not go there.
Yeah.
He's like,
or the fact that if you watch the part where they're doing the drill, one of the kids is asleep in the front row.
Oh yeah.
Because apparently that episode was particularly boring. I think it's a good episode, but
really,
audiences did not like the drill.
That's the one where they like try to siege Ba Sing Se, right? Like,
yeah, it's like they're gonna do like a second siege of Ba Sing Se.
Yeah, and Azula's there, and they try to like
use this giant fucking drill to drill the wall, and then they go tell the Earth King, and they're like, "There is no war within the walls of Ba Sing Se." Yeah.
There is no COVID-19.
You can't get into Ba Sing Se.
Yes.
I mean, that's why they call it Ba Sing Se and not Na Sing Se, which I think is such an excellent joke because no one in the audience would get that.
Yeah.
But he's laughing at himself. He's like, it's not Na Sing Se. Oh, he's like, that's fucking funny. This show is so good. Both shows are so funny. So
they are. They've got some good stuff in there.
Yeah, really good stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I could sing this show's praises. I think the voice cast is excellent. I think this show is so fun. I think it's great that they got the actress who played Princess Yue in the movie. I know you don't like the movie, but the actress who plays Princess Yue in the movie is actually the same voice actress who plays Asami.
Yes, there's the voice cast is real legit.
Yeah,
they've got if my memory serves correctly, I believe Zelda Williams, like Robin Williams' daughter. I could be misremembering this, but I think she does the voice of Kovira.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
And, like Henry Rollins does the voice of
Zahir.
And the thing is, like, if they had wanted to do like a live action version of Korra around the time they had made it, he would be perfect. Like if you ever see what Henry Rollins looks like, he looks
I think they designed
it off
what
of
Henry
him.
Rollins looks like. But also like J.K. Simmons as Tenzin.
Yeah,
J.K. Simmons is amazing.
Yep.
But then even the bit parts, like Juan is played by that one guy from The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
everyone's favorite guy from The Walking Dead. I can't remember his name.
No.
Glenn.
Oh yeah, Glenn. Yeah.
And then even like these bit parts, like Eska and her brother.
Yeah,
is played by Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah.
And just like killer, like just like perfect casting, like just stellar casting.
Yeah.
Great voice work. Great great work from everyone involved. Like top notch.
Yeah. I forgot that Jason Isaacs was in the first. Yeah, plays Admiral Zhao.
He plays Admiral Zhao, and he returned. He returned for the cameo.
Yeah.
They recorded like some brand new lines for him, and he returned for his cameo.
Yeah, when they're in the
Korra,
spirit world.
Yeah. Great stuff. Okay, so my pitch is really long, so why don't you go first?
Yeah, mine is quite short. Like, no, I shouldn't say quite short, but the last two pitches I've done have really like deconstructed the show and basically gone in a completely different direction. This one, I have a few new ideas, but essentially it's like the bulk of my pitch is just rearranging and kind of moving some pieces around.
All right, well, let's get into it.
Okay, so the season one kind of goes exactly the way season one should. With like Korra going to Republic City to like train with Tenzin and Amon and the Equalists and, you know, all that good stuff. The only thing that I change is that Amon gets away at the end and Korra does not immediately get her bending back.
That's exactly what I did in my pitch.
Yeah.
Like a slightly different, but yes.
Yeah. Because I remember seeing that thinking, oh, like what a, like, because she was so good at water bending and earth bending and fire bending.
Particularly fire bending.
And she couldn't get air bending, and finally like she's able to get it, but it's the only bending she has accessible to her. And I was like what a great predicament to write your main protagonist in. Like, how's she gonna deal with it? And then it's just like, bam, there you go. Like, having all bad. Like, oh.
Hey, how about some, plot?
yeah, exactly. They served up beside a plot, and it was like, oh no, it's fixed now. So I was like, oh, like what a good conflict that you just abandoned in a second. So I had Amon get away. So now season 2 is kind of where we start to see a little bit of changes. So I think I'll read what I have here, just because I think I wrote it up pretty good. So Korra is learning air bending from Tenzin, but it's going very slow, which we kind of did see in season 2. But this is kind of, again, it's made more stressful because it's the only bending she can do. So so she's getting frustrated as she's being kept in Republic City to train, and others are being sent after Amon as he spreads his message and gains more followers with a plan to launch a new attack against Republic City. So they know Amon's been going to like the Earth Kingdom and like the old Fire Nation and things, and so he's like rallying up more support to try and launch a second attack on Republic City.
Do we know who Amon is? Do we know his like backstory?
I hadn't thought about that.
Okay,
if that
never
was
mind.
Gonna,
Don't worry about it then.
Maybe not.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, but like, because that like, not to sidetrack too much, but that whole thing, like the first time you see Amon and he takes away lightning bolt Zolt's like bending, you're like, how does he do that? Like, what? He can do like how is it possible?
It's such a good mystery.
Yeah, it really sets up like how,
and like it makes him so much more powerful. Where you're just like
menacing.
What the fuck?
How can you do this? Where was I? So gains more foot. So Korra is looking for a quick way to improve her airbending and is contacted in secret by a man named Zahir. She escapes from Republic City to train with Zahir. He introduces her to the ideology of the Red Lotus. So this kind of brings in like the theme of this season is kind of like the Red Lotus's anarchism versus Amon's socialism.
I don't know if I'd call it socialism, but
okay, if I gave it more time, I probably could find like what is Amon's like actual, like what would his ideology kind of, because really he wants everything to be equal. Like,
well,
he doesn't want anyone to have like an unfair advantage.
That's the ideology he espouses. What he's actually doing has nothing to do with that.
That's just true, but like,
yeah,
that's what the Red Lotus, so maybe Amon's character would be more of a mystery. That's like, because they would perceive him as a threat.
Yeah,
because not only can he take away people's bending, he's like, everyone's got to be like equal. Yeah. Whereas they're like, no, we're for like anarchy. And like, they're so like he's kind of a threat. So they see Korra and they're like, like we can maybe kind of use and manipulate the Avatar to like help us kind of get this problem out of the way. So Korra, she'll spend some time with the Red Lotus until she kind of sees their views as a bit too extreme. So she'll eventually work her way back to Republic City, like when the attack kind of happens. But this time she'll have learned some advanced airbending from Zahir. So the one thing I kind of changed about his character is that he is introduced as an advanced airbender, and the concept of because after the original second season, when like kind of airbending gets unlocked, it's kind of like an Xbox trophy where it's like, oh, you defeated Unalaq, like you've now unlocked universal airbending.
Yeah.
It's kind of like airbenders have been like. Because the what I got from the original season was like you kind of were discovered as an air nomad. It wasn't like, oh, you're born in this spot, so they're like,
well, it's a bit complex. So there were people who were living as air nomads, but weren't airbenders, until harmonic convergence happened, and then airbending was then disseminated once again throughout the land. Yeah,
so I guess like mine kind of says like there's been more like. Since the end of the war, like there have been more airbenders that have like
just naturally
have emerged.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Because the one thing I really didn't like, the first thing I didn't like is that like when they unlock airbending for random people, and then the first time you meet Zahir and he breaks out of that jail cell, it's like, okay, like I understand he can do airbending, but how does he know to do that?
I always thought that was a really interesting idea where he had studied airbending.
But do they ever explicitly state that he had?
Yeah, because he continually talks about this one ancient master.
Oh, yeah,
right? Because you'll notice that from that point on,
Zahir
never touches the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he from that point on, he like has this whole thing about unlocking the body and becoming one with the wind.
Well,
And
we had become wind. Yeah,
and
yeah.
he keeps referencing this one master who talked about that.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea is that Zahir knew he could like open his chakras up to the possibility of airbending, so that when airbending was unlocked, that he could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I will say that's super cool. He never touches the ground for the rest of the series.
Yeah, he's always like floating about. But no, I think that was just one thing that was like maybe clearly wasn't as clear from my viewing experience, was like how would he be able to like do like pull off those moves like without having actually like studied those like the proper technique to pull off something like that. So again, like that's one thing I've changed about his characters. Like when we meet him, like he's part of the Red Lotus group and he's already like he's an established kind of advanced airbender, but also like, you know, again, kind of like does some like darker things. So what I actually have Korra do is that she pulls off that infamous like air suffocation choking thing on a Mon.
Oh damn!
On a Mon. And it's supposed to be very reminiscent of when Katara tries bloodbending for the first time, except she like goes too far with it and kills him.
Damn.
And kills him on with that air like suffocation thing. So this like kind of so the Equalists kind of they retreat from Republic City, and so now everyone like is not sure how like they're grateful to no longer be under attack, but there's people who have like very conflicted views of like, oh, like
basically she just made Amon a martyr.
Yeah, exactly. So she's made this like these schisms and these rifts, and like even her own like friends will be like, I don't know if like that was okay. Like that, like you essentially like suffocated him to death. Like that's pretty metal, man.
Where'd you learn that trick from, Zahir?
Yeah, exactly. So now in season 3, kind of focuses up a bit more on the Red Lotus. So the way I basically tried to do is I tried to like bridge certain antagonists, kind of like it, like so they kind of naturally flow from one season to the next, as opposed to being more.
I tried to do the same thing,
compartmentalized. So in this season, the Red Lotus, whose numbers have increased after Korra's attack against the Equalists, are launching coordinated attacks against the governments of the world. Korra's uncle Unalaq survives an attack and pledges his resources and support to take down the Red Lotus, as their objective is now to remove government, religion, and the Avatar, and to bring the worlds into what
the Red Lotus or the Equalists?
The Red Lotus.
Okay.
It will be this season where Korra learns how, like, she will learn how to energy bend, and give herself her own bending back. So as opposed to like the end of season 1 where she's just kind of moping on the cliff, and then Aang shows up and is like, here you go.
Which was kind of cool. Like if it was one season, that was such a great moment because she thinks it's Tenzin.
Yeah.
But it's not. And it is a really cool moment. But because it's not one season.
But yeah, because it goes into the next one. Like, oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a little Deus Ex Aang Machina.
Yeah, exactly. So she will kind of learn, because again, Unalaq is a very like spiritual individual. So like she's going to kind of learn a little bit more about like the spirit world, and sort of learn about, I always want to call it spirit bending, but it's energy bending. Like,
I think I called it spirit bending.
That's actually where I started picking this up from, because you've always called it spirit bending, so that's what I've always called it. But like in the show, it's energy bending.
Okay,
but like I don't know.
I guess I mean if I apologize if I use the term spirit bending.
I actually use it more often than.
But what we mean, just for the list, what we mean is energy bending.
Yeah, it's specifically like the ability to take someone's bending away.
Yeah.
Or as the original first season of Korra did, instilling it back, or instilling
the second season,
or
in the first season, but they talk about it they talk about Avatar Wan, in the second season. But okay, never mind. I was gonna say something about spirit bending, but I have in my pitch I do more with spirit bending.
Okay, cool. And yeah, so she gives herself her bending back. Like she learns to unlock it back, like kind of when she figures out like how, like, because she can't like blood bend, like unblood bend herself, but she'll learn the energy bending. So now she has, and so that will be how she goes up against the Red Lotus, is that she's unlocked her water bending, her earth bending, her fire bending, her spirit bending. So then she's able to, that will kind of resolve itself a little bit more like it did originally, except she won't be as like injured from that, because like she'll have unlocked all of her bending, so she can, like, she's now like a fully fledged Avatar, and so she's able to take on like Zahir and Combustion Lady.
It starts with a P. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And
Sparky
Boom Woman.
Man.
and the Lava Bender.
And the really intense waterbender with no arms who
that was
water
so
bends
cool.
arms
Cool.
That's some really good
really great ideas. That's why season 3 is my favorite. The Crimson Lotus was so cool.
Yeah. They came up with some really good antagonists for Legend of Korra, like from Amon to Unalaq to
Unalaq is okay.
Yes.
Unalaq's story going after Vaatu, very cool.
Yeah. So speaking of Unalaq and Vaatu, so season 4 now. So I actually ended up adding a 5th season because this is where some of my more original ideas started to come in. So Korra's uncle Unalaq, the chief of the Northern Water Tribe, seizes control of the Southern. So this season very much
is season 2
with one very big exception. And that being because when Unalaq merges with Vaatu, it's that can't be undone. That can't be expelled now. He's kind of like a secondary avatar. And I really wanted them to commit to that idea. So what happens at the end of the season is that she defeats Unalaq.
Oh, but there's a reincarnation.
So now there's the light avatar that has her their cycle, but now the dark avatar also does.
That's neat.
So because Unalaq is a waterbender, so now Korra kind of realizes the Earth Kingdom, there is a dark avatar that's been born that will be there.
Actually, what would be interesting, just as a side note, what if the dark cycle works backwards?
Or
so she thinks it's going to be in the Earth Kingdom, but it's actually in the air.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's actually not
because it works reverse.
Yeah, because it could go I didn't even think about that. Yeah. That kind of changes my season 5 a little bit, but that's
just an idea. You don't have to take it.
That is a pretty good idea. So so season 5. So I'll kind of read what I wrote down here. So this kind of helps with this. Will bring Kovira in. So in the season, Korra is looking for the Dark Avatar that will be born into the Earth Kingdom. It's been a few years, and the Earth Kingdom, knowing that the Dark Avatar would be born into their land, have distanced themselves even further from Republic City. Under the leadership of Kovira, they've become an independent state and have done away with their monarchs. The season will see Korra take on almost like a Zuko role, as she's searching for this Dark Avatar, but she doesn't know what to do with them when she comes across them. Kovira plans to use the Dark Avatar to fight against Korra and to keep the Earth Kingdom independence.
What's it called now? The Earth Republic?
The Earth Republic. Yeah,
I don't remember what they call it. They call it something new in the fourth.
Yeah, so it would be called that. With the world finally having an equitable weapon against the Avatar. So, one thing, I really liked Kovira as an antagonist. I don't think it should have been as easy for her to take on Korra, which is
that was weird. I mean, I know Korra was injured, but it was weird how she makes a show out of beating Korra, and I was no. Korra can turn into a giant spirit guardian, and also has she doesn't have the benefit of all the avatars past, but we've seen her able to turn into a giant, kaiju sized spirit person. Just fucking do that. Yeah, I know.
Squish her. So this kind of helps with that because Kovira, she fears Korra because she's if she's a direct threat to Earth Kingdom or the Earth Republic's independence. So she's if Korra wanted, she could just bust down the door and she could choke me out, or she could incinerate my blood or whatever. So when the discovery is there's this new cycle with this Dark Avatar, if we could find this Dark Avatar and kind of raise it in the Earth Kingdom, we would have a weapon that we could use to match the Avatar. And of course with Kovira being the way she does things, even if they both kill each other, it's not the worst thing in the world. The real point is we need to kind of remove Korra from the equation, or at least have a deterrent for her, so she doesn't come in here and try to impose what the Avatar thinks should happen. So it's one thing Legend of Korra they really stress with Korra is how opposite she is to Aang, and therefore Legend of Korra being from the last Airbender, she's female instead of male. Airbending is her weakness, whereas Aang was primarily an airbender, but she masters all the other elements very quickly, but struggles with airbending. you know,
she takes a much more, in the Lacanian sense, she takes a much more masculine sense
Yes.
than Aang. Aang is very that's why I say Lacane is a philosopher, and he talks about like the male and female kind of spirit or energy, as opposed to like the male or female role. So what I mean by this is like Aang takes on like a Lacanian feminine idea, where he's much more passive, he's much more laid back, he's not particularly aggressive, right? Whereas Korra occupies a more aggressive, more masculine sense to Lacane, where she's much more aggressive, you know, active, she's stubborn, these are much more like masculine ideals. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I just mean in the Lacanian sense.
Again, like it's not quite so binary where it's like, oh, females are
no, that's just Lacane just talks about like those ideas in like not those are the terms he uses, like the masculine energy, the female energy, or spirit, or whatever. I find it's useful to talk that way to like deconstruct roles. Particularly when we're talking about feminism, we'll talk about like Katniss Everdeen, and people will be like, "Well, she's a strong female woman." I don't disagree, but she does occupy a lot of masculine ideas in the Lacanian sense. So that there's nothing wrong with her being a strong female woman. It's just, do all our protagonists need to have masculine traits? Right? So that's why I say like Korra and Aang are much more opposite in the Lacanian sense. I'm sorry for deconstructing that, but that's very important to me.
So that's kind of the like, so Korra is kind of left with this, you know, like I said, it'd be interesting, like, so the reason why I brought up she's kind of opposite is like now she kind of gets to, and this kind of helps bring Zuko in a little bit, because he's used in the show a little bit, but he could be a big more upfront in this season, because like she feels compelled to try and track down this dark avatar, and so she's taking on like Zuko's role, and so she's looking for him, and it's like, okay, well, like, what are you gonna do when you find him, and like, what measures will you go, like, you're technically like, you're like invading a country, like, you know, you don't have like permission to just waltz in there, but she's like, I'm the Avatar, like, what is this? And Kovira's like, no, this is our republic, like, this is our play, like, you can't just, like, this is exactly why we need like another Avatar, because like you Avatars kind of walk around like you own the place, but really it's like we want to do our own thing. And Korra's like, no, like, we need to be like, you know, the world needs to be like united. It's like, no, like we know how to run our own show, like we don't need you coming in here and telling us what we need to do in the Earth Kingdom or the Earth Republic. Now I don't know how that will all get resolved, but I think it would still just be such an interesting,
I think it'd be interesting to see, because remember that Korra and Aang and any of them are not inherently good.
No, that's true. Like, I'm thinking of Kyoshi.
Yeah, Kyoshi is not evil per se, but she's not exactly good.
No, like, lady,
she's pretty utilitarian.
She's pretty to the point. It's like, yep.
Yeah. I actually think it would be interesting if when Korra finds the dark avatar, if she's just like, we're gonna teach it. And so she, instead of having like a dark avatar the way Unalaq wanted, they wind up actually just having two avatars that are designed to like balance each other out. So she like trains the next avatar, and he's like, oh, you're training me to be the next avatar. And she's like, no, I'm training you to be like the opposite of me. To keep me in check. Just so the way that I keep you in check.
So there's always like, now there's like a check and balance. Like the two avatars are like, so that's actually, that might be a good way to
that's a really interesting idea.
So
I also really like how you got like political with her. Like, we can't just let Korra waltz in here and do whatever the fuck she wants.
Well,
even though, is Kovira still a dictator? Like, or would you make that more ambiguous?
I'd make that a bit more ambiguous, because like I do still like the fact that she does away with like the monarchs.
But Kovira is like a straight up, or she's designed, the way that she looks, the way that she does, like, is militaristic. The show, I think, goes out of its way to be like, this is a like, she's a despot, like, this is a tyranny.
Exactly. So I'm not entirely opposed to that idea, but I would want it to, like, I'd want it to also be like, oh, like, look how much the Earth Republic is thriving now that Kovira has taken over. Like,
hey, in a crisis, totalitarianism works really well in a crisis. Because you have one person dictating how everything works.
But I did like the fact that she kind of did away with these, like, with the Earth Kingdoms, like, monarchy. Well, actually, I guess the original, like, Zahir does that.
Maybe here, like,
but Kovira, like, doesn't allow the sun to, like,
Yeah,
Or-
the sun. No, apparently, like Mako is trying to protect the sun.
Yeah.
From whatever happens.
Yeah, because she's like, we don't like look at this dweeb. Like he's supposed to like lead the Earth Kingdom.
And then
she's
she
like,
basically like usurps that whole thing because she was like, I put this together. Why would I hand it over?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I
like that idea too.
Yeah, and like the show itself really like Legend of Korra more than Avatar, which I think is really cool, is that every antagonist kind of has a different like political ideology.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, so like Zahir is anarchy.
Yeah.
And then Equalist is like that kind of socialist idea you were talking about.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Not
then,
quite, but like
Kavira is like tyranny.
Yeah, like totalitarian.
Unalaq
like
is sort of there.
Well, no, Unalaq is theocracy.
Ah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's really interesting to sort of, I hadn't thought about that.
Because they're all about like, it's all about the spirits,
The
man.
spirits.
Yeah.
Or animism, but theocracy.
Yeah.
So like, and so it's interesting. Like, that's what I mean when I say like each show, each season sort of had this thematic idea about how people run a country or run themselves. And I actually tried to tap into that a lot. So I'll get into mine if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah. So I will say that's sort of what I tried to do is each villain represents. So I'm going to try and add in more theocracy. That's fucking dope. But I will also say that, and I'm going to give a shout out to my friend John because he put this so eloquently. So because one of the problems that he and I both had about season 3 was how they started building mechs and having mechs and whatnot.
Yeah. That,
season
the
4.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, lots of shows out there have mechs, even steampunk mechs.
Yeah.
But only one show has bending. You know, I didn't come to see mechs. I came to see bending.
Yep.
And so that's why he put that so eloquently. Lots of shows have mechs, but only one show has bending. And I think they kind of not betrayed themselves, but it was a bit like, I came to see some badass bending.
Yeah.
You know, if I wanted to watch mechs, I'd watch Gundam.
Yeah. Or Power Rangers, like if you
Yeah,
really, like, you know what I mean,
really
like,
want to get that.
You got so many
I
choices.
mean, Korra's still better overall than Power Rangers.
Oh,
in terms
absolutely.
Of its plot.
Yeah.
But, and nothing against Power Rangers,
No,
different
no,
kind of show.
but-
But my point is, you know, there are great shows out there that deal with mechs, but only Korra, only Avatar has bending.
Yeah, I mean, you could watch Pacific Rim if you're like...
Great movie.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And he was really right to put it that way. Because, like, you've got so many choices. It's like, why would you need to bring in... Like,
It's a cool idea. I think it works. But if I was going to do that, I would have focused more on the dichotomy between technology and spirituality in bending and sort of pitted that against each other, almost the way that like some of the Iron Man comics pit the Mandarin against each other, magic of the Mandarin, the magic and spirituality of the Mandarin versus Tony Stark's science and technology. I think that works really, really well, but they didn't do that in this one.
Iron Man 3.
Yeah, but
a really great thing to have tried.
Anyway, season 1 is pretty much the same. The only thing that would change is that Korra is conflicted about Mako and Asami.
Yeah.
And so there's a weird thing because she's like, they're both kind of competing for Mako. They're both kind of competing for Mako.
Yeah.
But they're also like flirting with each other.
Yeah.
Maybe not overtly yet, but I did want to plant that. I do want them to like slowly, when she breaks up with Mako in season 2 or whatever, that there's slowly like this connection that is forged with Asami that feels a little bit more natural.
Yeah.
Over time. Cool. So in the end, we don't figure out what Amon's backstory is.
Okay.
So in the end, Korra has her bending taken away, but she manages to defeat Amon using her airbending, which comes out after he blocks her water, fire, and earthbending. So very similar to yours. We then see her like launch Amon over a cliff, but we never see him unmasked. And so she defeats Amon, but she's not able to get the bending back. So basically the same thing that you did.
Yeah.
She's not able to get her bending back or the bending of others. She's not able to get their bending back. So I don't know if Tenzin loses his bending. Does that happen in the original?
I
can't remember.
Think so.
It's been a long time.
It has been. I don't think so.
Okay. Anyway, so season 2 starts. Korra is trying to figure out how to unlock, like how to get her bending back. But it's not really working. So they decide, what if they go to the spirit world through the gates that are in the pools and see if they can like go into the spirit world and unlock it that way, because she is the bridge, right?
Yeah.
And so she should be able to figure something out. So they're like, that's a great idea. But we also see that she's having nightmares over losing her elements and that she feels responsible for what other people are having, but Amon keeps haunting her nightmares still.
Right.
She's still thinking about that, even though he was defeated because he like violated her. We're also introduced to Unalaq and her cousins and her father. That's all fine. Yeah, so that's all good. So we also see that some of the spirits have become angry.
Yeah.
And they're like shifting to the material world and attacking people. And Unalaq is using his waterbending to heal them.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, we'll put some theocracy in there. He wants to like be like, we need to do everything for the spirits and whatnot. So, man, you're so brilliant.
Oh,
you're really well
dude.
done. I can't believe I missed that. So as it turns out, the spirits are angry because a group known as the Crimson Lotus has been attempting to breach the spirit world through the gate.
Okay.
They're basically like an anti-White Lotus that has been responsible for keeping Korra safe.
Yeah. I just wanted to just to clarify. So have you changed the name to Crimson Lotus instead of Red Lotus?
Oh, sorry. I think it's the same thing. The reason I call it the Crimson Lotus is because I must have done this unintentionally. A Crimson Lotus is the term that they use to name Solf J. Kimley from Full Metal Alchemist. You haven't met him yet. I know you're watching the show.
Yeah.
And Crimson Lotus is the translation they use, and it in Japan, instead of calling it a mushroom cloud, they call it a lotus cloud, a red lotus cloud.
Yeah.
So I must have done this accidentally. It's the Red Lotus.
Oh,
Crimson
okay.
Lotus.
I wasn't sure if I have intentionally changed
No,
the name
I must have
because,
confused it. It means the same thing. The idea is like a Red Lotus or a Crimson Lotus is a bomb cloud.
Yeah.
In Japanese. So, which I think is very appropriate. So the Red Lotus, the Crimson Lotus, has been attempting to breach the spirit world for some time, and this is pissing the spirits off, rightly so. So Korra and the gang go to try and stop the Crimson Lotus they're bombarding the spiritual gate trying to get in, and leading the Crimson Lotus is Amon.
Right.
And she's like, what the fuck? I threw you off a fucking cliff. And he's like, nah, bruh. I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still going to haunt you.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get away from me. And so she's like, you don't have your bending back. I took that away and I can still take it away. And it's like, what the fuck? So seeking answers, Tenzin reveals that the Crimson Lotus once had attempted to try and assassinate Korra when she was younger. And the White Lotus had protected her. And the leader of the Crimson Lotus was actually captured. And she's like, well, I thought Amon was the leader. And he's like, no. The original leader was another guy. So against Tenzin's judgment, Korra's like, I need to meet this leader. Yeah. And so Tenzin takes Korra to meet Zahir. And so Korra is hesitant, but they basically start talking to each other. And Zahir is actually like fairly interested in her as a person. He asks her questions about who she is and like what she does, and like almost innocuous questions, like, tell me about yourself. And he just... so it's like she's a little weirded out, but in turn she asks him questions about Amon, and Zahir is unimpressed with Amon. He's like, Amon. And he explains that Amon was like a person that he had trained to be part of the Crimson Lotus, who always wore masks. Amon wanted everyone to be like, so no one would know who each other was. And Zahir was like, that's not the purpose of the Crimson Lotus. The purpose of the Crimson Lotus was to get rid of the Avatar.
Right.
So he's like super not impressed with Amon. He's like, he's warped my ideas.
Yeah.
And so I'm not impressed with what Amon is doing. But he explains that she's like, well, how did Amon, like, who is Amon and how did he take it? He's like, I don't know who Amon is. He was always part of this one sect of the Crimson Lotus that wanted to keep their identities secret, and that worked. But only the Avatar can energy bend. Right. So you need to, like, basically what you need to do is go back to the beginning, because only the Avatar can energy bend. What Amon has done, I don't know, but he's not energy bending. Yeah. Only the Avatar can do that. So she's like trying to figure out, what do you mean back to the beginning? So she's a little weirded out by Zahir. She's like, I don't know what this guy's about or whatnot. But she realizes that when he says go back to the beginning, he means the beginning. So she actually goes into the Avatar, or asks Unalaq to help her like unlock her spirit abilities, to help her go, because she's not great at spirit anything, right? Yeah. So she's like, can you help me meditate? And so he's like, yeah, sure. So he uses his water bending spiritual shit to help her meditate, and she winds up going into the Avatar state. Oh. But instead of just going into the Avatar state, she travels back through each Avatar. So we slowly see her go all the way back. And so we see the story of the first Avatar and how the lion turtle spirit bended. Right. And so she's like, oh, okay. So like, and the story of Rava and Vatu. Yeah. So she's like, that's where the Avatar came from. Okay. While she's in this state, the Crimson Lotus shows up and attempts to kill her in the Avatar state, because they know that will...
Yeah, sever her.
Which is kind of weird, because they're like, how the fuck did they know where we were keeping her, or that she was in the even in the Avatar state? Like, this is pretty crazy. So when she does actually wake up, and the rest of the gang keeps her safe and whatnot, and she understands that bending comes from Rava and her connection with the light, so that she should make that connection again, and she'll be able to bend again. So she goes into the spirit world because she's able to get in without any resistance because she's the Avatar.
Yeah.
And her friends and family protect the gate while Amon and the Crimson Lotus are trying to attack it. Korra comes across Rava, or she finds the tree, and then she's trying to find Rava, and then realizes Rava is actually in herself.
Right.
And so in the spirit world, Rava comes out, or at least talks to Korra in some way, and is like, you never lost the bending. It's just been blocked. Somehow your chakras were blocked through whatever Amon did, but you never lost your bending. They weren't spirit bended away. They're just blocked. Yeah. So Rava says, you've always had the ability. They're just, somehow this thing happened. So Rava's like, but I'm glad you came and found me, because there's been something wrong in the world, and what's been wrong you can restore, and you could only have done this if you came and found me. And so she actually seems to like touch Korra and hand Korra some kind of power. Okay. Korra's like, oh, okay. And she seems to understand what this is. So Korra returns and then asks Tenzin, she's like, Tenzin, I need you to help me meditate. And Tenzin knows he's actually like, I think you should go find somebody who can do it better, like Unalaq. So Tenzin's has this whole thing, where he's like, I'm not a great, bending is good, but I'm not a great spiritual leader. Yeah. And so, but Korra goes to try and find Unalaq and can't find him. And so she's like, well, I need some help. And then she realizes that Jinora, the oldest of the airbending children, is actually a great spiritual guide. And so she asked Jinora for help. And so the two of them managed to unlock Korra's chakras through meditation. And then you can have an awesome fight, but Amon escapes. And Korra reveals that the energy that she was given is actually airbending. Right. And so she like puts it into the giant beam that is the gate and puts all the airbending back in the world. Okay. Although I did like your idea about it always just slowly becoming a thing. It also turns out, so she can spirit bend all the benders and everything's happy-go-lucky. But then it turns out that the Crimson Lotus used the battle at the gate as a distraction to break Zahir out, who was now an airbender. Dun, dun, dun. Season 3. So season 3 sees the characters traveling around the world trying to gather new airbenders and see how they use their power. They can meet Kai, who like Jinora was super into. I think that's what happened. You remember Kai? He was like the airbender who was like,
oh yeah,
the dude airbender who like Jinora had a crush on. Was it Jinora or Iki?
I think it was Jinora.
Yeah. Anyway,
he's the little dude, isn't it?
No, Milo is the little dude.
No, Iki's the younger girl.
Iki is the middle girl. Yeah,
middle girl.
And then Rohan is the young boy, young boy.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we meet Kai, and that's pretty cool, and they can have this romance and whatnot. So when the Earth Queen dies by Zahir's hand, we only hear about it. Okay. And then the world powers decide we're going to have Kovira basically like deal with this. You deal with this, and the rest of us like keep the country together. And so Kovira goes out to do that. As it turns out, the Crimson Lotus is still interested in the spiritual gate as well. So they're still attacking there. And it's like there's some weird business here. And Unalaq has also not reappeared since that whole thing's happened. But they have seen Amon, so like people are starting to put things together. As it turns out, Zahir was the original leader for the Crimson Lotus, but things have changed course. He's disgusted by how the Lotus is working and how it's doing stuff. And so he actually meets with Korra. Yeah. And he says, look, all we ever wanted to do was get rid of the Avatar. I was never interested in killing you. I just wanted to get rid of the Avatar. You just happened to be the Avatar. And he chooses to meet with her. And they thought it was going to be a trap. And he explains all this to her, and it's not a trap. There's nothing set up. So now he thinks they've trapped him. And Korra is like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, I never tried to assassinate you. I never killed the Earth Queen. They've all made it look like it was me. Right. And everyone's like, yeah, sure. And Korra's like, okay, you've never lied to me before, really. So she's kind of weirded out by this. He's like, just hear me out. And so Korra is like, I need a place where we can just go and talk. And so the two of them actually run away together and go to the swamp, the earthbending swamp, which is a maze and whatnot. She's like, And Zahir's like, oh, I like this place a lot. Like everything is connected. Everything is whole here. And so everyone believes that Korra has actually betrayed them. We can even do something really cool with Asami here. Where she's like maybe heartbroken. So Korra takes Zahir to the swamp where they can hide out, and they spend like a month together, just like meditating and asking questions. And Zahir basically like teaching Korra about the spirit side, which she had always struggled with. And so he explains more about like inherent power structures. The equalist that Amon had set up was an extension of what Zahir had originally wanted, this idea where nobody had power. Nobody was better than any other person. And the Avatar is essentially like a constant reminder that not only benders have power over non-benders, but that the Avatar will always have more power than anyone else. And that is just not right. Like take Kyoshi, for instance. For some people's perspective, she was a tyrant. So yes, she was the Avatar, but you know, no matter which way you shape it, the Avatar is always going to be a person who defines how the world is at that time. Right? Like whether it was indecisive like Roku or you know, passive like Aang. Like what if we get an Avatar who is not a great leader? What if we get an Avatar who is evil? Not that it's ever happened, but right. And so he's like, this is why we wanted to get rid of the Avatar. And so Korra is like, oh, she realizes like Zahir never has anything against her. He actually is a pretty chill dude. He just wants to get rid of the Avatar, not Korra. She just happens to be the Avatar. And so, but she's starting to see like as they leave the swamp, or she leaves the swamp, leaving him there. She's like, I don't agree with everything he's saying. So while Korra was away, Kovira has been gaining more and more power. And when Korra returns after the month, she confronts Kovira and how she's shaping the Earth Kingdom. And as it turns out, Kovira is actually like a member of the Lotus as well. And she's been trying to basically sequester and annex part of the Lotus, of the Earth Kingdom, to create like resources for the Crimson Lotus. Red Lotus, whatever. End the season. So in season 4, we discover that the reason the Crimson Lotus have been attempting to get into the spirit world was to contact Vaktu and try and create a negative avatar. Korra goes to Zahir and explains like, what the heck? And Zahir is like, that's dumb. Like, why would it be better to have 2 avatars? It would be better to have no avatars. Like, this makes no sense. So dumb. One would rival the other, but then they would just have 2 people who are more powerful. It was originally Zahir's idea, but he's like, you can see why I abandoned that idea. And, you know, I was young. So, but the Crimson Lotus is now backed with the power of part of the Earth Kingdom and the tyrannical rule of Kovira, but they have like a full military operation now. So Korra knows that it's her job to protect the spirit world and everything and the whole world. And when she left for a month, things basically got fucked. So she's like, I can't leave again. Like, I left for a month and things went to shitsville. But Zahir is like, you can't continue to look after everyone. They have to figure it out on their own. Like what's going to happen when we have someone, you know, who can't do what you do? We need to figure out how to do things on our own. So Korra, eventually they're actually beaten back by the army, like the power of the army. And they're like, okay, they've gone into the spirit world to find Vatu. And Korra's like, I need to go to the spirit world. That's my job. And Zahir actually shows up in person this time. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And he's like, I'm going to go into the spirit world with you. And Jinora says, I'll also go to the spirit world with you. Because they're all very spiritual people. And Tenzin he's sort of like, we need to be... She decides to trust Korra. He decides to trust Korra. So they go into So they head into the spirit world, and in the spirit world, Amon actually kills Zahir. He's like, you're working against me. Like, I will defeat my master. And he kills Zahir. And Korra finds herself actually deeply affected. She's like, even though Zahir was against me, he wasn't always my enemy. And actually, he was actually like quite kind and actually enjoyed Korra. He like enjoyed her spirit and her personality and actually like, so she's like, he's kind of like a mentor in the way Tenzin was. I don't always agree with Tenzin, but I never always agreed with Zahir either. Right. Like, so, whereas, so like Tenzin was her like mentor in airbending. Zahir was her mentor in the spirit kind of thing, the way that Tenzin never could. So Korra finally, is upset. Korra shows up and meets Amon in this dark cave. And they say, we've already found the tree. We've created an alternate avatar. And so Korra begins fighting with this alternate or this anti-avatar and bending all 4 elements against each other as they're fighting. But it turns out Jinora finds the tree and Vaatu is still in the tree that he's been sealed in. And so she's like, there's no anti-avatar Vaatu. And Korra realizes that Amon is actually 4 people and always has been. 4 different benders who have all been wearing the mask. Unalaq was the blood bender who took away her power.
Right? Yeah.
Kai, the airbender they found, was actually has been doing the airbending. Kovira has been earthbending. And then another firebender they can meet along the way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to work that part out, but it's actually been 4 people. And so now what it is that those 4 people have all been pretending to be the same person, but have been in the cave. They were all bending to make it look like they were the avatar, to try and use that fear that Korra has of Amon.
Yeah.
But she finally defeats all 4 of them at once.
Yeah.
But Unalaq runs off. Like, he manages to escape because there's 3 other people that Korra was dealing with. And he goes and releases Vaatu from the tree. But Vaatu is actually more concerned with destroying Rava than creating another avatar. So he immediately starts going after Korra. And so Jinora is like, how do we seal Vaatu away again? And Korra is like, I don't know, but I'm tired of always being the one who has to fix things. And I don't think sealing him away is going to be a good thing. So finally, Vaatu fuses with Unalaq, and we have this awesome fight between the 2 of them. And Korra basically is like beating them back. And she finally, like, with her spirit bending, she's like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. So she spirit bends and actually pulls Vaatu out of Unalaq through the power of spirit bending. She's like, they're perfectly matched. And she's just like, fuck it. And just pulls, and then she pulls Rava out of herself and puts the 2 of them together. So instead of having them constantly fighting, she's like, now you're one thing. And she fuses them together using her spirit bending. Then with their power, she grabs the earth and spirit bends the spirit world into the physical world, like spirit bending them together. But in the process, she uses up the power of both Vaatu and Rava. It's like, I just imagine like this massive thing where she's just like, no more, and just spirit bends the worlds together into one world and uses up the power of both Vaatu and Rava. There will be no more avatar. There is only one world. Spirits and humans are equal and bending for everyone. And then she's like, yep, that's the way it's going to be. And when she then we get an ending where Korra and Asami are sort of there, and she's like, so you're not the avatar anymore? And she's like, nope, I'm just one person. And she's like, but everyone has bending now. She's like, yep. And which bending did you choose to keep? And Korra says airbending in honor of Zahir.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Damn, that is a really good. I love that ending. That's really, really good.
For me, the picture that I had in my mind was this idea of like Korra literally just be like, no more of this, and like pulling Vaatu out of Unalaq, and then pulling Rava out and like putting them together and be like, now you are one creature, one being, not light and dark, but one thing. Right? Just like a neutral universe. And then using that power to like grab, like I know it's spiritual, but like physically grabbing like the earth, the spirit, the fabric of reality, and spirit bending the 2 worlds together.
So really, she's the last avatar.
That's the idea. I don't want any more, because to me that's what, like, Zahir, and I played Zahir, I downplayed Zahir. He's not an evil guy. I wanted him to be like, oh, he does want to kill the avatar, and that makes him bad. But the more that he talks, the more Korra goes, oh, like, actually he makes a lot of sense. And so what I kind of also wanted to do was, and it didn't come across quite as well in my pitch, but I sort of wanted to have like Tenzin giving Korra advice that she listens to, and Zahir giving advice, but the 2 of them are conflicting. And in the end, what I wanted her to do is actually take both sides. So like somehow basically be like, Zahir keeps talking about how there can't be an avatar, but Tenzin keeps talking about how there has to be like a balance. like you need someone to keep the balance. And so she's just like, well, I kept the balance. I made everything equal.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool. Where she listens to Zahir and Tenzin.
Yeah. I like how you incorporated all of the villain, like the antagonists throughout, and they gelled well together. So
yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted like a central antagonist from every season, and then have it be like, oh, Amon was actually all of them.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't do Amon quite so much justice here, but I really like the idea of a guy in a mask.
Yeah.
And the idea that the mask allows Amon to be whoever is behind the mask, right? And so what we wind up with is this person who is actually for people. It's always been the idea of Amon that has scared Korra, not and what he's capable of.
Yeah.
Right? But not but that Amon was always many different people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just like Zahir. I thought Zahir was like probably the most interesting villain / character that I have seen in a long time.
Definitely, yeah.
Very interesting character. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else about Korra? I talked for a lot. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Like I said, mine was a bit shorter. Mine was just more like rejigging and kind of moving stuff around. No, that's it.
Yeah.
It was
I will say then, just to end it off, that I really enjoy the Korra we got.
Yeah.
And this is not an indictment or and I mean no offense to the creators of Avatar. We wouldn't do this if we weren't huge fans of the work. And if you do really like Avatar, both The Last Airbender or Legend of Aang and Korra, then go and check out The Dragon Prince on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's by one of the creators. It shares a lot of ideas in terms of how the fantasy world is created. Not that it's a continuation or anything like that. It just has a lot of features that are very similar.
Yeah.
The humor is very similar. The storytelling is excellent. The world building is excellent. Go and check out The Dragon Prince. It is awesome. Very much enjoying that.
Absolutely.
3 seasons right now with another 4 planned. So, and thank you so much for joining, Justin. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to come
Where can
on.
people find you?
Same place they always can. Robot Philosopher socials.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Anywhere you listen to.
Yeah,
music.
exactly. It's hard because of how we've pre-recorded all these. So like this could be coming out and like we could be dropping an album.
Yeah,
or
probably
like,
not.
Probably not, but like it could be. Like
yeah, it could be.
Depending like, when this gets used. So it's hard to be like, oh, like we're doing this or we're playing it, like this could be
Well, nobody's playing shows right now, but
look at like that, but it could be post COVID. Like it could be like, oh, like we're playing a show or we're going on a mini tour or we're like, we're
playing a one show, but
yeah.
just keep an eye out on our socials and you can listen to our band. You can also check out CineMasters right here on YouTube. We're also on Facebook, and check back every Tuesday for new episodes of CineMasters Ultimate Timeline, the podcast. And every other week we release new video essays of This Is a Thing. And I might be posting some new stuff. I'm working on something new. It might already be out by the time you hear this, but I'm working on something new in terms of video games and whatnot. So thank you so much. Peace out.
Take care of each other.